His pack heavy on his shoulders, Teyo Verada trudged through the sands beneath his world's twin suns, along the edge of the dune, trying to ignore the farting carry beast in front of him as he daydreamed of the miracle of the lavatory. Born in a tiny village 19 years ago, Teyo was now returning from what had been his first visit to a big town like Oasis. Much to Abbot Berez's chagrin, the keeper of Oasis's only inn had refused to house the acolytes in her stables. Honored to have actual shield mages in her establishment, she had insisted on lodging them in guest rooms for the same cost as a straw-filled stall. The abbot attempted to explain that acolytes were not yet shield mages and deserved no such luxury. But for once, the voice of his absolute authority fell on deaf ears. So it had been 2 acolytes to a room, twice the size of Teyo's cell back at the monastery, which he normally shared with Arturo, Perrin, and Theo. But that wasn't the real wonder of the place. There were no chamber pots, no latrines, no wash basins that required refilling from a jug, which required refilling from a pump 100 yards away. Water was piped right into a small lavatory down the hall for drinking, washing, bathing, and, well, waste. And said waste was then piped away somehow to somewhere that wasn't just outside your window, causing a stink worse than the carry beast's gases. It was a kind of miracle to Teyo, and his mind just couldn't let it go. But Oasis was 2 leagues back, and now, laden with a year's worth of supplies, the party was headed for home in single file, crossing the sand dunes of Gobokan, the abbot in the lead, followed by a carry beast, followed by acolytes, followed by another carry beast, followed by more acolytes, followed by a last carry beast, followed by Teyo Verada, lowliest of the low, least talented of all Abbot Berez's students, as the abbot was so fond of telling him. He daydreamed of becoming an accomplished monk of the shield mage order, assigned to a big town like Oasis, where one's own worst stink was carried far away as if by magic. Maybe that's a magic I could master, he thought ruefully. What did the innkeeper call it? Plumbing? He wasn't sure what the running water had to do with plums, but he had always liked plums. They were sweet and juicy, and the acolytes were each given 2 on solstice morning. Teyo sighed audibly and trudged on, knowing that his meager skills with a shield wouldn't earn him a place in Oasis or anywhere like it. He'd be lucky to land a village the size of the unnamed place he'd been born and later orphaned during his first. Suddenly someone grabbed him by the shoulders, shaking him into the moment. "By the storm!" the abbot shouted over the rising wind. "Are you deaf as well as blind? Take off your pack and prepare! We're in for it! Now!" Teyo scrambled to comply, shedding his pack as sand from the eastern cloud sliced past his bare cheeks. Squinting, he raised his hands, tried to focus, and began chanting the geometric lore of the shield mage. Berez moved forward. "Shields up!" he shouted, his voice enhanced by magic to be heard over the now roaring wind. Teyo concentrated. A triangle of shimmering white light formed across the palm of each hand. Then, second triangles formed at offset angles from the first 2. Third triangles, and on his strong left hand, a fourth. But 3-point shapes wouldn't do, and he knew it. He needed diamonds to thwart diamonds. And Acolyte Verada was not particularly good at 4-pointers. Not particularly good, particularly when under pressure, like when the abbot harangued him during morning exercises, like when a diamondstorm was imminent. His shields were off balance. His left hand, his eastern vertex, had always been much stronger than his right. He turned in profile toward the coming storm to compensate while summoning up a perfect glowing white circle beneath his right ear in an attempt to even the mana scales. It worked, more or less. Teyo knew the drill and willed himself to follow it. 4 points. 4 points. 4 points. 4 points. Concentric circles formed above, below, and to the left and right of his 2 sets of triangular shields. Form the lines. He joined each set of 4 circles to the others with bright white lines of sharpened thought. Fill the shapes. He expanded his western and eastern vertices to create 2 overlapping diamond-shaped shields. He'd be protected now. He could take a breath. But the job was only half done. As the abbot taught, if all a shield mage could protect was himself, he was a pretty poor shield mage. Teyo was at the end of the line, but at minimum, he needed to enlarge his shields to safeguard the hunkering, lowing carry beast and the supplies on its leathery back. He took a half step forward, leaning into the sand and wind, which was already sparkling. Had he been a second slower, micrograins of diamond would already be shredding his clothes and skin. They were already lodging themselves into the thick hide of the beast, which groaned mournfully at the pinpricks of pain. Teyo used the wind as a vertical platform upon which to expand his shields. It wasn't orthodoxy. The abbot wouldn't approve. But it worked for him. The shields, the 7 triangles, and the 2 4-pointers merged into one larger rhombus. His geometry was holding, and the now protected carry beast rewarded him with a relieved sigh and a rather stinky emission. And just in time. Larger diamonds, the size of small hailstones, began striking his shield and the shields of his fellow acolytes. Teyo glanced to his left and saw Arturo sporting a mighty trapezoid. Show off, Teyo groused silently. Who's he trying to impress? Teyo knew the answer to that question, of course, for there was the abbot moving up and down the lines with only a small personal oval, shouting in his enhanced voice to hold the line, to be the geometry. The wind-blown diamonds got larger, now the size of solstice plums, thud, thud, thudding against Teyo's rhombus. 7 or 8 hit at once, and for a moment Teyo thought the impacts would shatter his concentration and his lore. But he sucked it up, leaned in, renewed his chants, and maintained. And then the lights started. Lights? How can there be lights? It makes no sense. The sand and diamonds kicked up by the powerful desert wind should have completely obscured all sky and all light. Yet there they were, above and before him, lights sparkling in the sky like enormous rubies and emeralds and sapphires and obsidians, and, yes, more diamonds. It drew his eye, his mind, his concentration, and ultimately his lore away from the task at hand. A diamond the size of an apple glanced off his shoulder before he realized his shield was faltering. He tried to recover, but the geometry was lost to him. The beast crooned in pain as Teyo struggled to recover his lore. And even then, the lights that could not be in the sky he should not see called to him. Again, Abbot Berez appeared from nowhere, forming a wide 4-pointer that protected both Teyo Verada and the carry beast. Seriously, boy, what is wrong with you? The lights, Teyo murmured, pointing weakly upward. What light? You're lucky I could see you failing and flailing in this murk. Child of all my students, you teach me despair. Yes, master, Teyo said automatically, his true focus still on high. Briefly, he wondered why the abbot couldn't see the lights, but even that mystery couldn't hold his attention. The lights spoke to him now, reaching somewhere deep in his soul, creating a foreboding sense of doom and, despite that, a kind of summons that pulled him forward.